Don Global presents
the DG Recruit podcast on everything headhunting and recruitment. Achieve the life and career you envision. What's up, game changers? It's your host, Don, founder of Don Global, the headhunting and career coaching company helping you achieve the life and career you envision. In today's DG Recruit podcast, we'll talk about tips for client meetings. I recently got a note from a longtime follower of this podcast who now, since the COVID pandemic is finally coming to a more reasonable end where we're coming back to normal, business as usual, now we are starting to do client meetings again. Thank God. Thank God for that. I mean, who does not like to do one of the core reasons and core benefits of being a headhunter, which is seeing people? That is like one of my favorite things to do in this job. In fact, when I got into this business at age 23 in 2011, I always loved that the most about my job was booking meetings, going to meetings, winning clients face to face. In fact, in-person meetings are the number one, I would say, most useful tool to convert and build relationships. Now, obviously, if you, like me, sell nationally, there's a certain degree of feasibility. Like, I can't just pop over to Ohio just cause, right? But certainly for the locally based clients, you'd be remiss if you do not take advantage of your location and leverage that locational distance, that advantage to your benefit. This is what I call a proximity leverage point, a competitive advantage purely on proximity. So if you, like me, are selling regionally, you'd be, again, remiss if you do not take the time to meet the clients in person, because that is the easiest way to lock down clients on exclusivity. Duh. It's the easiest way to get someone to buy into you fully and not entertain your competitors. And the whole name of this game, recruitment that is to lock down your loyal following, your loyal followers, your loyal customers, and keep them that way. So with that being said, client meetings are incredibly important. And if you are in a luxury of conducting those meetings in which you have a proximity leverage point, you will best benefit from meeting your clients as much as humanly possible in a way that is socially acceptable. So let's break down the 6 tips I got for you for client meetings. So number 1, I want to talk a little bit about mindset. Now, mindset is all about feeling confident. Why are so many people nervous about in-person meetings? It's because they have a little bit of anxiety, which is normal. Now, having anxiety is completely normal, right? Because you are, after all, a human being. You are not a unfeeling psychopath. You are a genuine human being. It's natural, especially if you are young, like I was when I started in this industry. When I was 23 years old and I landed my first client meeting, within the first week at work, I had to get ready to meet this client the second week. Now, I know it's scary, but sometimes life just throws opportunities in your face and you have no time to prepare. And like you, possibly in your recruitment role, I as well did not have proper meeting training. So our company did not give me meeting training. They weren't like, hey, Don, this is how you're going to do your meeting. You have a general idea of the action plan, but you have actually no idea how that meeting is going to go. So what's really important at that time is to prepare for accepting the unknown, to embrace it, to not be intimidated by it, to not be nervous about it, but to embrace the element of unknown. But what do you know, right? What do you know? You know that you are an interesting person. Can we agree on that? Right? For me, I knew, hey, maybe I'm not the most experienced recruiter. I was, after all, only 23 years old when I was getting into this industry, and I had no prior recruiting experience. So I don't have a lot of knowledge, right? When I go and meet these clients, it's not like I could say to them, well, I've been doing this for 10 years. Like, I didn't have that flex. So what did I know? What did I feel comfortable about? I felt that I was comfortable in my personality. I said, well, at the very least, the client's going to like me personally. They may not think that I'm very knowledgeable. They may not think that I know much. But at the very least, they will like me. God damn it. That's what I mean by mindset. Is that, yes, I don't know everything.
Nor do I want to act like I know everything. That's not the point. The point is that I am a very good person. I am coming to this meeting with the right intention. And the intention is that, Mr. or Mrs. Client, I'm going to win your business, and I'm going to cater to that business, and I'm going to deliver on that business in a way that my competitors will not be able to do so. You can rest assured that I know my competitors will not be working weekends and nights. My competitors are not going to be very good listeners and lovely to interact with. And because recruitment is completely dependent on likability, I can guarantee you, if you put me in front of the right prospects, if I make myself known to the right candidates, that their preference would be to work with me. That is the confidence that I have, knowing absolutely nothing about medical writing, knowing absolutely nothing about pharmaceutical recruitment, knowing nothing about how the scientific drug development process works, because none of that is important in winning over customers. If I take your rec, if you give me the rec to work on, I can guarantee you that my level of intensity in how I service the rec and how I engage with the customers on the rec, that they will go for it because I am tenacious. I will not give up, and I'm very good with people. That, my friends, that is the actual talent that top headhunters have. It's not how much you know. It's how much people want to deal with you and are willing to do as you suggest. And that, my friends, that Mr. Mrs. Client, is what I'm going to do for you. So that's the first part, is mindset. Mindset is having the confidence, having the fearlessness to say that A, I don't know everything, but B, the things that I do know, I am a killer. I'm a killer at it. Okay? So that is the first part. With that rock hard, ironclad, bulletproof mindset, the second tip is that I want you to learn how to properly conversate. Now, again, if you, like me, are coming into recruiting at a young age where your family is not all executives sitting in a C-level role, then it's likely that you, like me, will have to learn how to conversate with business professionals. This is going to be a new skill that you have to adapt to and learn and mirror match as soon as possible. So when you are talking to business prospects, you do not start going like and then, and you don't do that. You have to speak in a business-like manner. That means upskilling your vocabulary. So if you're talking to an executive search level, C-level client, you can't just use colloquial terms all day long. You have to also show them that you have the repertoire and the versatility of having all different demographics covered. Not only can you speak colloquially, you must be able to speak at a high level English business-wise, right? So that means downspeak. Every time you say something to a client, you don't pose it as a insecure question. Like, are you hiring this year? You think this is possible? No, none of that. It's, what are your hiring plans this year? What are you looking to do? It's this tone. The tone is everything as it relates to commanding respect, especially if you are half to a third of the prospect's age. Now, when I was 23 years old, selling to 50-year-olds, I had to mirror match very quickly. If you do not mirror match quickly, you will be sidelined as somebody to be taken advantage of. As a young woman, I do not want to be perceived in that manner. I want people to take me very, very seriously. So as much as we all demonize Elizabeth Holmes, she did this to great effect. She spoke with a heavy downspeak. And this is an adopted communication pattern that I think top salespeople all have in common, is that nobody really talks like, well, what are we going to do? Like, nope. We all speak properly in terms of the tone, which is downspeak all the way. And another fact and tip and hack as it relates to properly conversating with people is that you must be able to have a string of open questions in your armory. Okay, so you have a whole freaking filing cabinet of open questions. You're not going to let the conversation eke to a standstill where it's super awkward and y'all are looking at each other in silence. No, you're not going to wait for that to happen. You're going to keep on the offensive. As salespeople, it's our job to stay on the offense. Like, we're not trying to defend, we're trying to offend. So now what you're going to do is have a whole slew of open questioning. So the minute the conversation is looking like it's going to close, you already are ahead of the game seamlessly with your next question lined up. When you first see clients, obviously a little bit of small talk is necessary and frankly required to be viewed as a normal human being. So when you meet your client, you're going to look them in the eye, you're going to shake their hand firmly. Right? After you shake their hand firmly, look them in the eye. Hello, Bob. Hello, Mary. Right? Like, practice that. Don't wait till you go to the meeting to practice that. Do it normally, right? Like, I don't know how I did it, but basically every time I see people, I'm almost like acting. Right? When I meet like a 60-year-old venture capital like leader who's worth millions of dollars, I act like he ain't shit. Right? I say hi to him. I'm like, hello, Jamie. How are you? Right? Hello, Jamie. Thanks for meeting me. I really appreciate it. And then we sit down, right? That's what it is. It's acting. It's never like what you say to your friends. Like when you're hanging out with your friends, that's like business as usual. That's like, you don't have to fake it. But when you meet clients sometimes, you do have to put up this like front because this is a business engagement. It is not casual. It is not the same. And you want to set the tone early on. And I always like to start off with a very formal kind of, hello, hi, thank you so much for making time for meeting with me. I really appreciate it. How's your week? How's your week? This is where I go into what's called the colloquial tone. Right now, I'm friends again. You can vary between professional, where you're creating distance. Now, distance is very safe, okay? As a young woman, it's not a bad idea to create distance from older men. It's not a bad idea. That's why I always like to start out my meetings with a bit of distance. I want them to feel the distance. That I'm not somebody that you can just do XYZ and say XYZ. I'm setting the tone from the minute you meet me that this is going to be a business meeting. But as I finish doing that, I'm going to say, how's everything this year? How are you? How are you? Now I'm going to bring it down to, now we're talking at peer level. Okay, now we're talking at peer level. At no point am I speaking to a client like they are a client. I'm only treating them as either a peer or as a very professional contact, right? It's not like, oh, hi, thank you so much for meeting me. Nope. You're not fucking Lady Gaga. Nope. You're just a freaking run-of-the-mill client, right? I'm not going to put this client on a pedestal, okay? I'm going to treat them like a normal person. And I'm going to set the tone that you're not better than I am. You just happen to be the client in this engagement. And that's that, right? No need to make this any more rock star than it is, because they're not a rock star. They're just a client. And then the next part I'm going to talk about later, which is knowing your stuff. So we can talk about that later. I want to circle back to this idea of offense. So when you start a meeting, you do not want to be talking. All you want to do is ask questions. That's what I meant. Offense is not selling blindly. Offense is asking astute, open questions at the appropriate times. It's about asking questions, and then that is the game, right? You're asking questions, and you're keeping them on defense. That's all. It doesn't mean that you're going to start selling them. This is why I love working at my company. This is why we're so good at recruiting for the role. Shut up. It's not your time to sell yet. This is where the majority of salespeople make mistakes. Is right there. They start selling. It's too early. What they need to do is wait and sell at the end of the meeting. So I'm going to talk about that later. Don't sell. So if there's anything you should do at the beginning to mid stage of the conversation, it is to avoid selling. Only conversate at this level. Let's talk a little bit about body language. Number 3, body language. In person, obviously, it's going to be body language. Now, I have a terrible habit. Of staring people dead in the eyes. like a freaking psychopath. And that's just a personal preference. I don't know if it's an alpha wolf kind of thing. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a game of chicken, but I genuinely feel I feel close to people. And now that's a really weird thing to say, but I feel so close to people that when I meet them, I look deep into their eyes. I cannot help myself. I actually find their eyes to be very interesting, and I want to see them, and I want to see how they react. But I know that freaks them out. So I'll look people in the eyes for like probably 70% of the conversation, and then I'll give their eyes a break because I know that intimidates people and makes people feel uncomfortable. So I'll look away. Like I'll make this actual concerted effort to not just bore into the fucking soul of the person I'm talking to. And I will actually like avert my eyes just to give them a bit of breathing room, right? Because like you don't want to be like scaring people. At the same time, if their energy level is not as high as yours, like my energy level as a default is very, very high, I will absolutely mirror match. So if my prospect is very shy, is very like quiet, am I going to start screaming? No. What I'm going to start doing is, yeah, I'm curious. Yeah, so tell me more. Like mirror match, right? You got to get on the same page as soon as possible in a very natural way. Okay, so I think that's what really, really matters is that you got to understand that these are people that you're trying to relate to. And yes, there's a certain charm in being yourself. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't be yourself because I always leverage my personal charm to my benefit. I like to make jokes. So I'll always make jokes. I'll be like, oh my God, tell me about that. Like I'll always take those opportunities to be myself and have my personality. But I'll always adjust my communication pattern in a way that actually makes the prospect feel safe. Right? Feel safe, feel accepted, feel heard, essentially creating what's called this energy of simpático, right? Like we're simpático, like we kind of are on the same page. We're of the same mindset, same approach. And that is very important. All right, so that's body language. And again, it's not anything creepy like, oh, if they lean back, you must immediately lean back. It's not an exact science. That's the thing with a lot of this like sales advice. It's like, it's not an exact science. It's just a general idea is that you want to kind of align on the same page. You don't have to go out of your way to be completely insincere, right? You still want to maintain who you are, but you want to do it consciously. And just understand that you have to adapt your communication style depending on who you speak to. And that obviously is the benefit and the capability that top salespeople have, that people who aren't top in the field, that they can't do as well. They're a little less versatile, a little less sensitive to the social happenings around them. So a lot of sales is being hyper aware of what's happening and adjusting in real time. And that's the part that scares people, right? People are actually really scared of the immediate kind of influx and the ups and downs in the regular conversations with people. It's that they don't know what to expect. And therefore, that lack of knowledge of what to come is very anxiety inducing. And again, the strategy again is not to be perfect. So that's another really important bonus tip that I want to share with you is that it's not about perfection, it's about connection. Right? It's not about what you say and exactly how accurate and how beautifully well said it was. It's about, does the prospect really like you? Right? It's about that connection overall. That's the focus. Like the whole point of these meetings is to hopefully get the prospect to like you, respect you, and want to transact with you over your competitors. So you have to make them feel heard, make them feel cared for. And that's why the open questioning is really important. And not just one level open questioning, double layer, 3 layers deep, right? You don't want to say, oh, cool, you have a child. Great. And then move on. Keep talking. Cool. How old is your child? Is he or she? Get to really care about the prospect. Because too many times, I think, again, people, especially during COVID, we were not allowed to socialize. And now people have intense social fear. And now they're scared. Now people are so out of practice that they're scared to ask for more. They're just like, oh, okay, you have a kid. Awesome, great. What are you know what I mean? They're like, they're rushing to the next question. Whereas the human interaction is really built on real conversations, really understanding people, right? Like I get on very like interpersonal conversations, very, very personal conversations with my clients and candidates, because that's my goal. My goal is like, how can I break through the professional barrier so that I'm just not looking like a commodity? How do I come across as a genuine recruitment partner and collaborator versus like literally a goddamn like commoditized recruiter who's just like, oh, I'm here to take the order. I want to be more than that, right? And the way to be more than that is to actually engage with people on a personal level in a way that also isn't inappropriate. I mean, this again is a challenge with what headhunters do, top headhunters do, that people with less social finesse struggle with, right? And it's that fear of not knowing how to handle professional versus personal and how to handle it in a socially acceptable way that actually stops people from doing what they need to do to build a personal relationship. Right, so this is all something to consider. Now, the last 3 points I want to say, one is, as I mentioned earlier, being a subject matter expert. While you don't know everything there is to know about your market the way that perhaps your client does, because your client is actually in the field, right? We can recruit for technology as much as we want, but there's no way that we can program or talk about, the impact of XYZ language or this and that. And maybe you can, but you're not going to know it the way the actual person doing the job will know it, right? We are, after all, just recruiting for the role. What we should know about our market is salary ranges, expectations, pulse on the candidate market, pulse on the hiring market, factors and tips and advice to help clients better their hiring processes, to help them work on their retention processes, to help them better their salary plans, their compensation programs in order to curate and win and retain more talent, right? These are the subject matter expertise that headhunters have that clients don't know. This is the stuff that headhunters should know that clients are asking you for advice on. So we expect, and we being a client, I would expect you, the recruiter, to know these things. And if you don't know these things, then you need to go back and study and work harder, because you can't show up to a client meeting saying, I don't actually really know what the salary band is. That is not acceptable. Like if you are a headhunter, that is very much accepted that you should absolutely know what the salary bands are and all the different compensation components there are for your candidate pool. Because by this stage in which you're meeting clients, you should already know more or less how these people are being compensated. Otherwise, you shouldn't show up to the meeting. I mean, they're literally going to ask you, what is your suggestion on compensation plan? And what are you going to say? Like, wiggle your way out of that one? Fine. Maybe you can. But ideally, you will know the answer already. So it's really important to really know your shit. Really understand candidate pain points. If you're going to talk to clients and advise them, how can you advise them properly if you don't actually know what a candidate pain point is? These are the things clients are going to come to you expecting you to know. And if you cannot talk about it from an expert level, or at least a perceived expert level, you need to go back to the drawing board and practice those word tracks. All right, last 2 notes. One is close out the meeting with no ambiguity. As you near to the end of the meeting, make sure you start referencing the humanoid factors you guys talked about earlier in the meeting. So everything they said about their favorite hobby. Oh, okay. So what do you have planned for the rest of the week? I know you mentioned you were going to go golfing this weekend. How's that looking with the weather coming along? Refer back to what you guys talked about earlier in the conversation. And then also start closing them down on a recap, right? Come back and forth between both relating to the conversation you already had and also harping on the next steps, painting a picture for the future, right? I'm so glad we had a chance to meet. This was so lovely. Thank you for spending so much time with me. I really genuinely appreciate it. Okay, just to recap, I'm going to send you the T&Cs via email. And what did you want to do finally with those 3 candidates I sent you? What did you think of these 3 profiles, right? Again, what I didn't say earlier that I think is pretty obvious, if you were to go to the meeting with candidate profiles, have the candidate profiles ready on you, ideally printed, right? You don't want to go to the candidate meeting with like an iPad and make the client read it. You want to give them the actual documents and have them read it in person. If you have branded materials like a folder, branded folders, not a bad professional look, not a bad idea to put it all together for the client. The client actually might really appreciate that, right? Because they come out of the meeting being like, that was a very professional like presentation of the information, right? If you show the client, here's a branded folder, here are 3 NPCs, like most placeable candidate profiles in the actual document, in the actual portfolio. And then here are also my T&Cs. Please read them. Please see them. Please let me know what you think. And then depending on which ones you like, what times are you free for the interview? Make sure to close the client on the things that you want to close them on. If that is interview slots, get those slots. Do not wait until the client is in their car and driving back to the office before you chase them down for slots. Get the interview slots on site in person. Get as much commitment as you can face to face as humanly possible. So don't wait until the client leaves to then chase them down. What about those slots? What about those slots? They might just never respond to you. I don't know. They might take their sweet time. The whole point is when you have a meeting, leverage the meeting to your full advantage, especially at the end, to close out any remainder questions or ambiguity. That should not happen. It should be very clear. Hey, I just want to confirm, what's your hiring timeline? When is the role potentially going to be opened up? Because at that point, I would love to be your first call. I want to write in my calendar invite right now. I want to put in the information and book it for the time that I should call you again. What time do you think that is most reasonable for you? And they'll say, hey, Donna, you know what? I'm not really ready to hire right now, but definitely check in with me end of February. Awesome, Marianne. I'm going to check in with you end of February. I'm going to put this for, let's say, February 26th. Oh, does that work for you? Cool. I'm going to put this on my calendar. I'm going to actually add you to the invite. And if you need to move that invite around, feel free to do so. But in lieu of anything changing, I'm very excited to see you on the 26th. I'm sure we'll get a chance to catch up because I want to hear how your trip to, the Outer Banks goes. Okay. Keep me posted. So nice to meet you. Have a really nice time. There's a little bit of politician here. Right? You are playing a bit of a politician role. You are trying to win a popularity contest. This is what sales comes down to, right? It's all about likability. And so there's an element of politics involved. Okay. I've banged on enough about all of these statements. I want to close out today's podcast on a very serious note. And this note is for my ladies. If you are a young woman like me in recruiting, you need to be careful. Whether it is a client, whether it is a candidate, make sure to conduct your meetings in a very safe place. Yesterday, I was at a store and a man who was selling me something made me feel very uncomfortable. And ladies, I know you know when I'm talking about this. Your gut is telling you something. And my gut was telling me something very disturbing. And I did not like what was coming out of my gut. And I made sure to get myself out of that situation as soon as possible. Now, when you're on a client and candidate meeting, I just don't want you to think that it's going to be utterly safe without you ever thinking about the fact that there are people out there that will take advantage of young women in recruiting. I've heard colleagues' stories. I myself have experienced this. One time I met a client in Princeton and I went to his office. He wanted to get a coffee off site, which is fine. It's no big deal. Do it all the time. I drove him in my car. We go do the meeting. We finish the meeting. Kind of a waste of my time, but whatever. We come back to the office. I drive him back. On the way to saying goodbye to me, he turns around in my car. So this is a huge mistake. If you're going to say goodbye to your client, get out of the car and shake hands. Be careful about the hugging, right? Like, I don't know if it's too soon to hug or whatever, but he hugged me in my car and he turned his face around and gave me a disgusting wet smooch on my cheek, and I felt his saliva upon my face. And I had to extricate myself from his disgusting embrace. And I had to back off, put a fucking smile on my face, and say, well, it was nice catching up with you. Thank you for your time. Goodbye. That was the one and only time in the last 9 years that I've been in recruiting that somebody has dared do that to me. That is the one and only time somebody has dared do that to me. And I will tell you that on my client meetings, whether it's with men or women, obviously with women, it's a very safe space. I can be very nurturing. I can be very caring. I can be very expressive. I can hug, right? With my female clients and candidates, there's a different level of camaraderie. With my male clients, like that has never happened to me. And because I make a very clear effort to exude as much what people like to call masculine energy as much as possible. I learned this as a bartender, the importance of protecting yourself. And when I deal with men, I make it very clear to them that I am not open for business. Do not even think about being inappropriate with me. It's not going to happen, bud. Right? I make that very clear. And I need to alert and warn my female listeners that you have to protect yourself during these meetings because you never know what may happen. You never know what person you're going to meet because unfortunately, we are in a people-facing role. So if I don't say this, it's not fair, and I need to say this. And so I have to give you that warning. Just be very careful to protect yourself. Because sometimes in the Northeast, when my meeting finishes at 6 p.m. and it was a dinner meeting with an executive in which drinks were had, I have to find a very clear way to say, thank you so much for meeting me, Bob. Have a wonderful night. Take care. Goodbye. Right? It's that energy. So I have to say, be always very careful of how you curate your energy because in our line of work, we are in a people-facing role, okay? We're in a people-facing role. You cannot predict what people are going to do. All you can do is protect yourself and be highly attuned and alert. So that's it. That's all I have to say about client meetings, tips for client meetings. Let me know what you think. As usual, if you enjoy my podcast, please do. Pop me a 5-star review only, please. Please send me a review on iTunes or Libsyn or wherever you're accessing my podcast on. But yeah, thank you as always for posing your questions to me. Keep them coming. These are the questions that I answer on the podcast. If you have any questions on sales, clients, candidates, business, mindset, money, what have you, send them over to me. As many of you may know, I already have a free monthly series of coaching for recruiters on sales and recruiting candidate stuff. This week, I'm doing a free coaching on Thursday, the 26th at noon Eastern. And you go to my website, dondonzoo.com to sign up. It is a closed event only for headhunters, agency recruiters, those of us on the agency side, staffing, sales, etc. So make sure you sign up well in advance. I will not have time to approve your registration day of or hour of the event. I will not have time. Every single time I do one of these free coaching events, there are lots of people that miss out because they're joining last minute. I do not have time to approve everybody's registration. Register now well in advance of the event. The event is going down on Thursday at noon Eastern. I try to make it so that people from Europe can also tune in. This week's topic is going to be objection handling client side, so not candidate stuff. Our next 2 trainings in the following months, I will do one each every month. Those will be on candidate stuff. But this month, I want to continue our client grind. So Thursday's coaching is all about clients and how to manage objections. So go ahead, sign up. I'm excited to see you soon. We already have over 150 people coming. I've up to 500 people to join. So feel free to sign up. We have more than enough space. Feel free to share the event. As always, if this podcast has helped you, please do leave me a review as well as share the love with your network so that more people can access the training and free guidance in this podcast. Thank you as always for tuning in, and until next time.
I hope DG Recruit is helping you understand the realities, challenges, and opportunities when it comes to headhunting and recruitment. Whether you're already a top biller or an aspiring headhunter, I'd love to get to know you. Sign up at donnaglobal.com to stay in touch on all aspects of career coaching and headhunting. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I'll see you there. Thanks for tuning in to DG Recruit. This has been a production of Donna Global.